Good evening to all our viewers here in India. An early morning to those west of India, and probably a late evening to those east of India. Welcome to this webinar that's being anchored by the IIT Alumni Center in Bengaluru. This is, I believe, our 36th webinar since April 2020. Something that's been wildly successful, and we've had almost 30,000 cumulatively, almost 30,000 people who either watched it live or seen it on YouTube. Little over 2 weeks ago, on I think May 22nd, or 3 weeks ago now, we had a very interesting conversation between Professor Ashok Mishra and Dr. Naushad Forbes, Vice Chair at Forbes Marshall, about universities and how to make a university an institution. And we had pretty good reviews on that, and a lot of thought saying that kind of topic should be talked more about in the changing context of the 21st century. 2 or 3 days ago, I think the QS rankings were announced, and IIT Bombay, IIT Delhi, and IISc Bangalore were in the top 200. Professor Mishra is going to tell you more about it. But, we've been fortunate that today we have the three people who made that happen. Professor Balram at the Indian Institute of Science, Professor Ramgopal Rao, who's at IIT Delhi, and Professor Ashok Mishra, who was at IIT Bombay. So we have, the leadership of these three institutions today to talk about the IITs, and so on and so forth. I will not spend too much time. I think Professor Mishra will do an introduction to his colleagues on the panel. Professor Mishra, as everybody knows, amongst his various hats, the one I choose to talk about is that he's president of the IIT Alumni Center, Bengaluru, and our leader in this quest. Over to you, Professor Mishra. You're on mute.
Thank you, Ashok, and it's a pleasure to have you all join this exciting webinar. With the advent of on-demand education and the digital disruption, why I say digital disruption, in a very short time, India has gone digital in so many things. Education is being one of them, payments and to the things that you buy and so on and so forth. So we have jumped into a digital stage and leapfrogged into it. So anyway, with the demand of education and digital disruption that has been hastened by the pandemic, and with the emphasis of the government of India on AtmaNirbhar Bharat, there is need for reinventing the Indian higher education system in India. As Ashok said, we talked a little bit about it in a webinar earlier. And perhaps also in the world. It's not just in India, it's a worldwide phenomenon. The Indian Institutes of Technologies are expected to lead this transformation. These institutes are under pressure from all quarters for quick delivery of results and implementation of the results on the ground reality. Relevance and delivery are fast becoming synonymous with research, development, and I'd like to add innovations as we move forward. Given that these changes are sweeping over our society and the increasing expectations from the IITs, we are delighted to have Professor Ramgopal Rao to talk about the future evolution of the IITs and the changes that are needed to keep them relevant and make them harbingers of transition. It's a pleasure now for me to introduce two of my dear friends who are stalwarts in the higher education system and have made a difference in whichever respective institute they've been. Professor Ramgopal Rao is the director of IIT Delhi since 2016. Prior to that, he was the P.K. Kelkar Chair Professor for Nano Technology in the Department of Electrical Engineering at IIT Bombay, and led the formation of the Center of Excellence in Nanotechnology, which in my opinion is a world-class facility. He's a prolific researcher and has published 475 odd papers and has 48 patents to his credit in the area of nanoscale devices and nanoelectronics. These include 18 US patents also. Very, very impressive numbers indeed. 13 of his patents have been licensed to industries for commercialization. Ramgopal also has an entrepreneurial bent in his personality, having co-founded 2 startups at IIT Bombay, when he was there before IIT Delhi, that are developing products for the benefit of society as a whole. He's a fellow of IEEE, a fellow of the Indian National Academy of Engineering, and all the 3 science academies in India. Ramgopal has received several prestigious awards, which include the Shanti Swarup Bhatnagar Prize, Infosys Prize, Swarn Jayanti Fellowship, J.C. Bose Fellowship, and many more. Basically, everything that was there to be awarded in India, he's done that. And in addition, he's had the IBM Faculty Award, IEEE ED's Education Award, and Technovision Award from the Indian Semiconductor Association. He has served as the chairman of IEEE Bombay chapter, vice chairman of IEEE Asia Pacific, and was the chairman of India section of American Nano Society. We look forward to your thoughts and your vision of how to take the IITs forward. Professor Balram, also a very dear friend of mine, as I mentioned. He was the director of the Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore, from 2005 to 2014. He is a leading Indian biochemist and has been a faculty member in the Molecular Biophysics Unit of ISC for most of his academic career. He is currently a distinguished professor at the National Center for Biological Sciences after his retirement from ISC. Professor Balram is also a very prolific researcher and has co-authored more than 400 research papers on the structure, conformation, and biological activity of designed and natural peptides. So in this current times of the COVID, when I have a question, I don't understand enough of it, but I call Balram and say, so please explain me this, and he does it beautifully. He has also received a large number of national and international awards, and I won't list all of them for the paucity of time, but the most prestigious being the Padma Bhushan by the Government of India, the Third World Academy of Science Prize, and the Bruce Merrifield Award by the American Peptide Society. He is a fellow of all the 3 science academies in India and several foreign academies. He has contributed immensely to the propagation of science through the very prestigious Current Science magazine, and he being the editor of it for over a decade. As the director of ISC Bangalore, he introduced a number of innovative ideas for the transformation of the institute, and thus in turn taking ISC to greater heights. He is absolutely the right person to moderate the webinar today. As you have seen, both gentlemen have been or are associated with the top 3 ranked institutions in India. As Ashok mentioned, these rankings have come out recently. We cannot get better than this. So with this, over to you, Ramgopal, for sharing your thoughts on reinventing the IITs for AtmaNirbhar Bharat. We look forward to it and the webinar today.
Let me, Professor Ramgopal Rao, before you start, to the audience, may I remind you that if you have questions, please put it in the Q&A box only, not in the chat box. We monitor the Q&A box for questions, not the chat box. If there are general comments that you want to talk about, then those can go into the chat box. But questions should have to necessarily fall into the Q&A box. Thank you. Professor Ramgopal, over to you.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot, Professor Ashok Mishra. Thanks, Professor Balram, for taking time to be chairing this session or moderating this session. And of course, all my colleagues from IIT Alumni Center, of which IIT Delhi is a partner, and we're all looking forward to working closely with the IIT Alumni Center in Bangalore. In fact, on the screen, I see on one side Ashok Mishra, on the other side, Professor Balram. These are also the two people who brought IIT Bombay and IISc together. In fact, that was the first project from India or in India where two large institutions have come together and wrote a big proposal, one single proposal to Government of India for establishing the centers of excellence for nanoelectronics. Dr. Chidambaram spearheaded some of these programs, and Professor Vasi, who is also in the audience, and in fact, he championed this at IIT Bombay, and Professor Ashok Mishra was the director of IIT Bombay at that time, and Professor Balram of IISc. So they signed a joint MOU, and I think the rest is history. Now these activities, the nanoelectronics activities, have changed the culture of both these large organizations, the large institutions, and so much has happened after that. In fact, whatever I am presenting, every slide in this is actually the work done at the Center of Excellence in Nanoelectronics, which was basically an effort of both IIT Bombay and IISc Bangalore. And I mean, I will share my presentation. I'll speak about my perspectives on what I think IITs need to be doing as we go forward. And so I'm not, definitely giving this talk to either Professor Balram or to Professor Mishra. I think they have seen it all and done it all, and they know pretty much what I'm going to say. But this is mainly for people who don't understand where IITs currently stand and what are the things that have changed in these institutions. In fact, just this week the QS World Rankings have got announced, and everybody is either criticizing the institution, saying why is it that they are not still in top 100, and there are also people who are celebrating why that three institutions are in the top 200. I am neither happy with the ranking, nor am I sad about what is happening with the ranking. And or rather, I'm not even elated about what is happening with the rankings. I shared it on my social media handles, my views on that. And but I think what is important is I just put one slide as an afterthought, just to inform what these rankings are all about, and what exactly is the kind of a challenge that we see. So if you actually see this ranking, there are 6 parameters on which QS ranks institutions. You must keep in mind that a significant portion of this ranking is reputation, which are based on a survey. The academic reputation is 40%, employer reputation is 50%. So 50% of these rankings are basically surveys, where based on your perception of which is a great institution, you put some name of the institute. So therefore, it's neither scientific nor do we practice it in any of our scientific analysis. But that is how QS operates. But the other measurable parameters are the faculty student ratio, which has a weightage of 20%, citations per faculty 20%, and then the proportion of international students, proportion of international faculty 5%. So I have put IIT Delhi and IISc rank, and I have compared it with a 50th ranked university in Europe. You can find out on the web which is this university. I will also, it's not, these are all not secrets or anything. But if you see, a 50th ranked institute where everybody is saying IITs, need to be within the top 50 kind of a thing. On academic reputation, if you see, these are the scores that our institutions get. IIT Delhi, for example, gets 45.8 points out of 100, and whereas IISc gets 34.2 out of 100. I just can't figure out why academic reputation of IISc is lower compared to IIT Delhi. It's beyond my comprehension. Why is it so? But this university in Europe gets 84.5. And the faculty student ratio, IIT Delhi, we have increased as part of our EWS quota, the economically weaker sections, almost like 2,500 additional students. So now, given all that increase in the student population, faculty numbers cannot increase at the same rate. So we got about 30.9 for that out of 100. IISc is a smaller institute. Their undergraduate strength is much smaller. So IISc does better there. So they have got better marks here for the faculty student ratio. But this particular institute, which claims to have something like 3,400 faculty, when they call faculty, anybody who goes to the classroom and teaches is a faculty member. So all research assistant, teaching assistants, everybody is counted as faculty. In IITs and IIScs, we don't do that. For us, a faculty is the one who actually goes to the class and then teaches, who has a PhD, who is really called a professor. So I think we are a bit purists in that respect, but not everybody plays this game by the same rules. So I think they get 94.5 out of that. The citations per faculty, this is a wonderful score. IISc gets 100 out of 100. The only other institution in the world which has got 100 out of 100 is MIT. There are many MITs in India. I am talking of the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. So that is the #1 QS rank. It gets 100, and the only other institute in the world which has got the citations per faculty metric, citation per faculty 100 out of 100 is IISc Bangalore. So we should be proud of our institutions. But despite scoring 100 out of 100, look at their academic reputation. So I think, that is the problem. So now you need to go and question somebody why these things, do not correlate. And I think the answers we all know, what is happening. IIT Delhi at one point got 94 in this score in the same metric. In fact, we went up to 96, 97 in the citations per faculty metric just about 4 years ago. But we recruited almost like 200 faculty members in the last 5 years. Now these new faculty have come to the institute and they have added to the denominator, but they have not contributed to the numerator, because remember, this is citations per faculty, meaning they come here, they set up their labs, they build their research groups, and then they publish papers. These papers get cited, and then they start contributing to the numerator. So of course, we have gone down from 90 to 70. Nothing has changed. Institute is still writing more papers. Institute is still doing the same quality of research, but from 96 score here, we have come down to a 70 just because we recruited 200 more faculty. And so you can blame anybody for that. And but this 50th ranked university, their citations per faculty is 27.2. This is 1/4 of what IISc does. We are not talking of papers in unknown journals or anything. Remember, these are citations. You publish a paper. How many people cite your paper is the count that we are taking here. And in that, they get 27.2. And they are supposed to be the world's top 50, while none of Indian institutions, all our Indian institutions, none figures in even top 150 and everything. The employer reputation, I don't know why IISc gets such a low employer reputation. Maybe because for them employers are industries, and many IISc students, if you come to IITs, there are so many PhDs from IISc who are holding faculty positions in these institutions, but nobody asks us to rate IISc as an employer, because academy, they don't even count that as a metric. It never even would have occurred to them. And so of course, IISc being a postgraduate institute gets so low on the employer reputation. IITs, of course, our BTechs all do very well, and we got 90.2, but this particular institute again scores here. So anything which is a survey, these institutions do very well in the Western world. Anything which is a measurable metric, we tend to do very well, like many of these sort of things. So I think, this is the game. And if you look at the international faculty and students, here it's disaster for Indian institutions, because, how many students can clear the JEE advanced exam from abroad and enter our institutions? Hardly any, because we have been conducting JEE advanced examination for almost like 5 years now in over 5 countries all over the world. In fact, last year we wanted to conduct this exam in America, in the US, and but after 5 years at IIT Delhi, we got one international student who is a South Korea student who was able to clear the JEE advanced examination and was able to enter IIT, and we all celebrated. That particular South Korean student who entered IIT Delhi after clearing JEE Advanced was on the Times of India front page in Delhi, saying that one foreign student was able to clear the JEE Advanced exam and everything. And when we looked at a few details and all that, that student had actually done his 11th and 12th in India, and has gone to Kota to do his coaching and all that. So then, it was it was as bad as that, and but that is a problem. So therefore, if you look at international students, our examinations, even our master's programs, to get into some of the top programs in IIT Bombay or IISc or IIT Madras or any other older IIT, the cutoffs are like 99.9 kind of a thing. IIT Bombay microelectronics program used to end at 99.4, 99.5 through the gate exam. How many people can write those exams and enter our institution? So the doors are practically shut for international students in our institutions, and because we have one exam which decides all the admission processes, but this particular institute can recruit. It's in Europe after all, and India is like a Europe. So now anybody who comes from a different state, we can actually should start considering them as international students. But in Europe, if somebody from Austria goes to Germany and studies, he or she is still considered a foreign student, and of course they get 91.2 here, and the proportion of international faculty, half of them are the European faculty, most of them, I'm sure. So this is what the current story is. So it's not that what is all these metrics, what is the most difficult metric that you think is important for the institute? I would consider the citations per faculty. Improving this is not going to be very easy, and this is where our Indian institutions are actually doing very well. All the rest are related to policies. I think we need to address these policies so that Indian institutions will be in the top 30. I think IISc, IITs, the older IITs, that their rightful place in all these rankings is anywhere from 20 to 40 kind of a ranking, and only when we reach that stage, I would start believing in these rankings or take them seriously. Until then, to me, they are some random numbers, and let people say what they want to say. But I think we all know that there is nothing wrong with our institutions. The education quality that we provide to our students is world class, and the research we are doing is very good, and there is nothing that we are doing wrong here. And but having said that, excellence has no metric. You can continue to improve, and there is nothing like you have reached this stage and that is the end of the goal kind of a thing. I think I strongly believe our institutions need to definitely evolve with the changing times. Internationalization is very important. I will tell you some of the things that we are trying to do at IIT Delhi, and even the pressure I am putting on the ministry on some of these kind of measures. And if you also see, for example, the current status of R&D in India, India is actually doing very well. When it comes to the R&D, if you look at the National Science Foundation data, India ranks third in the world in terms of research output. We are publishing enough papers, enough good papers. There is nothing wrong in that. But our share of scientific publications, in the total, the world is still pretty small, 5.31%. This is the most recent data. While China's share is 20%, meaning every fifth paper comes out of China, and every fifth paper, every sixth paper, comes out of US. While India is still 5.31%. So we have some catching up to do here, but otherwise we have overtaken many other countries when it comes to the share of scientific publications, and we are doing pretty well. And India is also one of the fastest growing countries when it comes to scientific research. We are growing at almost like 11% as compared to the world average of 4%. So this is also a good thing. But we are not spending enough enough money. And as a percentage of GDP, our share for higher education is just 0.6 to 0.7%. We have been stuck at that GDP level. We are not spending more. But if you actually look at many of these developed countries, we compare ourselves with, whether it is South Korea or US or even China or many other Western countries, they are all spending anywhere from 2% to 4% of their GDP on the research, on the higher education, whereas India is spending 0.6 to 0.7% kind of a thing. And in fact, you can go to the websites and see, I recently did that, what China spends on two universities, Tsinghua University and Peking University, is the total MHRD budget for higher education. So the funding that goes to two universities in China is what India spends on all MHRD run institutions today. So that is the difference in scales when you talk about funding. But despite the low funding spent, we are still at the third position. And but we also actually rank number one when it comes to the per dollar spent, how many papers are written, meaning the knowledge generated per dollar spent. And there, we actually, we rank number one. So therefore, we have become greatest optimizers now of whatever funding that we get, and we are doing pretty well in that respect. But in areas like nanotechnology, which is my area of research, I work in nano electronics areas. So India has been ranked third in the world for almost like a decade. So while this third position happened about a couple of years ago, in fact, last year is when we reached this part. But in areas like nanotechnology, where there were mission mode programs launched, thanks to people like Professor CNR Rao and even Abdul Kalam, who played a very crucial role in the launch of the nano mission initiatives in India way back in 2003, 2004 time frame. India has been at the third position in the world, for almost like 7-8 years now. So therefore, we are doing very well in some of these deep technologies kind of areas. But what is missing then? We are a good knowledge kind of a generator, but the biggest challenge is the translation of this knowledge into wealth. It has become a unidirectional. So you get funds, 90% of that money still comes from government, and then you write papers, good papers, and these papers are cited. I think everything is fine on that count. But that knowledge that we generate is not flowing back to, is not going back into the wealth creation. And as a result, governments keep asking this question, why should we keep funding you if all that you do is publications, and while we import all other technologies, you only keep publishing, and then somewhere along the line they have developed this aversion to publications and all that. But I think, as a researcher, if you are, even if you talk about technology, even if you talk about innovation, if it is not based on the strong foundations of science, I don't really treat it as anything great. So therefore, I think everything, the knowledge we are able to generate, now the next step we need to take is at least IITs, which are meant to be technology institutes, at least in IITs, we need to translate that knowledge into wealth, a little bit more efficiently. And I think the impact needs to be seen in the society through the problems that we solve. To me, that is very important, and that is something that we need to do as Indian IITs. The higher educational institutions, there are basically three aspects. The education is one, which is what we are supposed to be doing, and we do a very good job at that. For the cost of education in India, the quality that we provide, nobody else can come anywhere close to that. And I will also show you some data on that. The knowledge generation, which is again, the publication of papers, and even there, as I showed you, we are doing very well, and we are at the third position. The problem here is the innovation. Now, what is the innovation? You can have any kind of a definition, but I am defining innovation as the something of value for which people are willing to pay you money to buy that solution. Something which is impactful in the society. A problem that you have solved is what is innovation for me. So therefore, when you talk in terms of that impact in the society through our research, we are lagging behind. I mean, you don't really see too many examples of things which have come out of our institutions and which have made a huge difference at the national level and even at the international level. So therefore, that is what in my opinion is basically missing. And to me, the biggest challenge of knowledge to innovation or knowledge to wealth generation, this relevance and delivery are the two important aspects. So I can publish a paper by modeling air quality in London, right? Because it's all very easy. I can go to a website there, all the data is available, all the sensors are already placed, and I can download the data, do modeling, publish papers, match it with real data, everything is available. But you want to, do the air quality modeling in Delhi, you don't even know where to start. First of all, the data is not available. And secondly, no ministry will really take you seriously. And then it's a struggle from the beginning. So therefore, we often tend to take this view that, if I want to publish a paper, who will go and talk to all these ministries and generate data? You need to, first of all, develop sensors, put those sensors, start collecting data, and nobody will give you so much of money to do all of that. Everywhere, the subcritical funding for our research, the easiest option is to go to a good website, all those websites in London, download the data, publish papers, and because it has relevance there, you can publish it in many of the top journals and all of that. That is what is happening today. So we're all, the relevance of our research is, in my opinion, something which is missing. So we do a lot of knowledge generation, but at least in the areas that I see, which I work and where my colleagues work, the relevance part is missing. And even if your research is relevant, the delivery part is even more critical, because you have found a solution. Now what next? Now, until now, we used to wait for some industry to come, look at all your data, find that it's interesting, and then take that data and then use that, and then in their solutions, and then finally give credit to the university or institution from where they have taken that data. All that I can tell you, you are connecting too many dots there, and there are so many missing dots in all of that process. Even where we have transferred to industries, where we have made an impact to what the industry has done, nobody is going to acknowledge openly, the big industry, saying that we have got this from this great institute and we thank them for all of this. Nobody is going to say that. So as a result, our institutions are always seen as writing papers, but nothing seems to be happening. Everything seems to be imported, and that is a kind of a impression that many people have gained about our institutions. I think this is therefore, to me, research and development is important, which is where we seem to be doing pretty decently. But this relevance and delivery part of it is where we need to focus as an institute, and that is where this this working in silos are, for the biggest challenge again is, if you in higher education in India is very highly fragmented. And if you want to do engineering, you go to IITs. You want to do science, you go to IISc. Of course, I know IISc has now good engineering disciplines as well. Or you want to do management, you go to IIMs. You want to do medicine, you go to AIMS. I think this fragmented higher education system, is what has made us less relevant to finding solutions to the problems. And therefore, all of us, in my basic area of research, which is electron devices, I know I can write a paper. I cannot really develop a product or anything. And so therefore, if we are restricting our research to what we are, to the narrow boundaries of what I know very well, I will be able to publish papers. Maybe once in a while, I might file some patents. Nobody might even bother about those patents, but they will look very good as bullets in my CV. But I can, get all the awards, all recognitions. I can get enough citations. Everything will be fine. Nobody will even question me, on why I have only been publishing papers, kind of a thing. And that is what is the current problem, because all these institutions have become silos. I can tell you, even in the electrical department, a communications faculty member working with a microelectronics faculty member is a big challenge in our institutions. These are all in the same department, two adjacent groups, but people in communications will not work with the microelectronics. That is where the problem basically lies, because we are not able to bring people together. I have always said that if you solve the problem of bringing people together, they will solve all your other problems. So the question is, how do we do that? We have experimented on that a little bit at IIT Delhi. I will also share that thing with you. This delivery part of it, until 5 years ago or 10 years ago, the only way you could see, only way you could make your research see the light of the day is, primarily by working with industries. But thanks to the startup ecosystem, which is fast evolving in our institutions, thanks to, this government particularly has given a lot of push to the Startup India and all of that. And many ministries are now funding startups. I think that has made a huge difference now. So many faculty members are now becoming entrepreneurs. This is one change that I am seeing today. At IIT Delhi, for example, in textile department, every fifth faculty member has a startup of his or her own. Every faculty member is also an entrepreneur, every fifth faculty member. And that is what needs to happen at the institute level. When 20% of our faculty have their own startups and able to take their research to the society using a startup as a medium, I would think that this delivery part of it will happen. And another important way industries are now coming forward is a new business model or a new interaction model which is evolving in India is industries don't want to directly work with the faculty member. They see that research to be too distant, something which they don't see an immediate relevance. But then they are willing to work with the startups. Now, once a faculty member has a startup, the industry doesn't mind putting money into that startup. So startups are also now beginning to act as a bridge between academia and industry. This is a new generation model for academia interaction, industry interactions, where startups are playing a very major role. I'm very happy that now that is beginning to happen, and that is also something which we need to accelerate further. And I will also tell you some of the critical steps that we have taken at IIT Delhi to actually do that. Now, how do we bring relevance? So this is a problem I have always believed in. I will also tell you my own personal experience, because I am an engineer. If I am not doing the same thing, why should I be able to? Why would anybody listen to me? And what right do I have to preach to the faculty that you do this? While I have not done that, but you guys must do this. I think it doesn't work that way. So at IIT Delhi, when I joined the institute, one of the things I actually looked at is, where do we pick up problems? Where do faculty members pick up problems? How do we give research problems to our PhD students? I can tell you, depending on which institution you go to, 70 to 100% of the research problems, that we give to our PhD students actually originate in the library. And any problem which originates in library, very often it also ends up in library. So this is one thing which I said, can we start, making that any different? So can we start giving research problems to our PhD students which are not generated from the library? How does it work? A student joins, student goes to library, reads 100 papers. Sir, this is done, this is done, this is done, but this is not done. This particular parameter is not varied in any of these experiments. So can I do that? The student now varies that parameter, writes one more paper, and the good paper, nothing wrong in that. And that is how the knowledge boundaries get pushed, and that is how much of the research actually happens in our institutions. So I said, can we start now making a difference at that fundamental level? Can we start making a difference? One thing I said is, can we start picking problems from society? So that India has all the problems of the world. If you are looking for a problem, you don't have to go to an American journal and find a problem. You just look around you, travel in India, a few days, you will actually figure out, infinite number of problems. Like I said, all problems that exist in the world also exist in India in some bits and pieces. So you can now, on each of these problems, you can spend your lifetime, because solving any of these problems requires a deep knowledge of an area, and also a very multidisciplinary kind of a team, and takes a lot of time. My experience of developing products and all that shows that it's a 10-year journey in India, because there are struggles at every step of the way. So therefore, you can spend decades in finding a solution to that problem. So therefore, can we find problems by observing in the society? One of the things we said was immersion programs. Now we started sending our students on village internship. So we said, why should students only go to US for internship? Why can't they go to our rural areas, stay with a farmer, and see, what are the problems that the farmers face? Go to All India Institute of Medical Sciences, which is, just 5 kilometers from IIT, and just stay with a doctor, during the doctor's regular day-to-day kind of a practice. Can you pick up problems by observing issues with the doctors? And so we created of these immersion programs where, idea is that in the summer, students go there, pick up these problems, and observe how these particular parts of the society function, pick up problems from there, come back and start doing it. In fact, we are launching a program now. IIT Delhi gets students from all over the country. Now, from whichever part they come from, there are local problems. Now we are telling our students, I'm going to do that along with Professor Anil Gupta from IIM Ahmedabad. So we are launching a major initiative on that. Now a student who comes from a rural area, the student works on that problem of his native place using IIT resources, using IIT mentorship. Now there is a pride for that student now that I have solved this problem in my native place, and by going to IIT kind of a thing. I think that is, that will give that pride to even that whole region, saying that, this student had gone to IIT Delhi and, solved this problem in our local area. So that is something that we are beginning to start now. This is one thing. One thing which I have also done is the humanities and social sciences departments. We have seen humanities departments as a service-oriented departments, and recruiting faculty, the engineering departments feel, why is this guy recruiting so many people there and all of that. But one thing I was very clear, they are like our window to the society. There are people, at least IIT Delhi Humanities Department is a very good department. In some of those areas, they are actually now, doing better than the JNU humanities departments, and they are ranking better than some of these JNU kind of departments. And what I told them is, we launched a program, a grand challenge program, where the humanities at the center of the whole thing. Now the problems are defined by humanities and they connect with the engineering departments, and only when that happens, when the humanities faculty member is at the center of the whole thing and connects with the engineering departments, then that group gets funded by the institute. So they for example, there are people here who understand the farmers problem, who understand the nutrition problem, who understand many of the issues that exist in the society, and they can come up with those solutions. They work with the engineering departments and finally explain to the engineers what really is the issue and find solutions to some of these problems. So we have not only strengthened the humanities department in a major way, we also started a new school of public policy at IIT Delhi, and we have also added so many more faculty, started Grand Challenges initiative where humanities is actually at the center of the whole thing. So this was again something that we did, which has made a huge difference for IIT Delhi. The other way is the industry interactions. I was actually looking at the first convocation address of IIT Delhi, where even in the first convocation address in 1960s, the one was talking about academia industry interactions and all that. Nothing much has happened. So that is only because we have been talking about it, but we have not been funding any of these initiatives. At IIT Delhi, we started to see what more we can do. So one of the things we did, which again worked very well, is this professors of practice. We said, can any industry person without a PhD can hold a faculty position at IIT Delhi? And we started now approaching on our own some of the top industry people, who we know are very good in their area, but their CVs may not look like a typical faculty member, will not have enough research papers, but then, but there we know that they are very good. So we started recruiting them. We said 10% is the limit. 10% of our total faculty strength, will be professors of practice. IIT Delhi can recruit about 1,000 faculty members at our current strength. At least 100 of them will be the professors of practice from the industries. Another thing we are starting now is joint appointments with industry. Many people from US, or any other country who are earning good salaries don't want to come and join IITs because of the low salaries. Now we are saying, can Google and IIT Delhi recruit that faculty member? The faculty member will spend 50-50 between Google and IIT Delhi, and then gets a good remuneration, but also acts as a bridge between these two industries. So we are now approaching industries, and we are trying to develop these joint appointments, industry sabbaticals for faculty members. This is another thing which we started, which I am very proud of. This is called FIRE, Faculty Innovation and Research Driven Entrepreneurship. Like I said, I want to convert many of our faculty members into entrepreneurs. How does it happen? It happens, because I have been an entrepreneur. I have done 2 companies. I know the struggles, that one goes through the moment you become an entrepreneur. Under the FIRE scheme, Faculty Innovation and Research Driven Entrepreneurship, if a faculty member says, I have done this research, which has an impact in the society, through a committee, the review process is tough. So through a committee, we evaluate that research, and if that is what it is supposed to be, as having a solution to a problem, we give that faculty member 50 lakh rupees as a grant from the institute. We give that faculty member 1 year of sabbatical. Now, until now, sabbatical we always use to go abroad, to join some university, spend a year. At IIT Delhi, you can take sabbatical for doing a company, for doing a startup. And you also get you can attach the 1 year sabbatical with 2 years of leave. So the leave and sabbatical rules, government system, you cannot mix them and all that. But we have gone to our board and taken those permissions. So a faculty member at IIT Delhi can get 3 years of leave. The salary, the job will be protected, of which 1 year will be a fully paid leave, and gets a 50 lakh rupees grant. And we have policies in place where this faculty member can make use of all the resources available in the institute and start convert that knowledge, that idea into a company. So that is now becoming very popular, and many faculty members are taking recourse to this FIRE scheme and are becoming entrepreneurs. So there are many other things we have done. Industry Day. We started an industry day. We said, every time I talk to industries, they say, but we don't know what you are doing, all that. There is a lot of barrier between each of these entities. So we said, let's have an industry day. So now we conduct an industry day every year, where, initially we started it in 2017. And now in the last edition, we had something like 500 industries which participated in that industry day, and they were here. We made an open house. They can go to any lab, talk to any faculty member, and we arranged all of those meetings. And then we started converting industry day into a PhD placement process. Now, initial years, we did not do that, but our placement cells are mostly focused on the BTech students. That is what everybody thinks about. But we now have the industry day. On that industry day, the PhD students get to talk to the industries, and industries can recruit the PhD students, because I felt that unless we create good opportunities for our PhD students, no good students will actually join these programs. And that industry day is also serving as a placement kind of a opportunity for PhD students. So tech parks, in fact, IIT Madras has done a great job with it. Why is it that IIT Madras has gone ahead of all other IITs when you look at the NIRF and all of those rankings? The only thing which they have done well, done differently, is the tech parks. Thanks to Professor M.S. Anand, who actually was a visionary in starting that. And just look at anything that they do, the tech park is at the center of all their growth right now. And the same thing is now happening. IITs are very good at copying each other. It's only a matter of a few years. But at IIT Delhi, we have 3 tech parks coming. IIT Bombay is also starting. I know all other IITs are also doing that. We will eventually catch up on the tech park thing. But that's the successful model. Was actually built by the MS Anand at IIT Madras, and that is what now will get replicated everywhere. I think these are the kind of things that we are doing, and we are also at IIT Delhi. We started a PhD incubator, the platform for harnessing deep technologies. If you look at IITs, we are graduating. IIT Delhi graduates something like 400 PhDs per year. So that is the number of PhD students we are graduating. Even IIT Bombay also graduates a similar number of PhD students, but how many of them are becoming entrepreneurs? I can guarantee you, I did this survey, I have the data to show you, not even 1% of them actually become entrepreneurs, because at that age, finding a job is important, and there are family pressures, you are getting married, you don't want to take that risk of starting a company. But deep technologies cannot happen from BTech students, because if I want to start a company in nanotechnology, a BTech student will not have the depth of knowledge to do anything like that. BTech students are good in anything which requires a business model innovation. IIT Delhi, has at least 16 unicorns have come out of our graduates, but most of them, are in the business model innovation, the financial models, the aggregation model. There they have done wonders. That is what the BTech students can do very well. But deep technologies, the PhD students need to take a lead. That PhD doesn't stand for the PhD degree. It stands for Platform for Harnessing Deep Technologies, and we intentionally made it look like PhD incubator. If a PhD student at IIT Delhi wants to become an entrepreneur, institute gives them a stipend because their basic needs need to be taken care of. And institute gives them an accommodation in our technology park. We have some rooms with attached bathrooms and all that. We give them accommodation. We give them funds to build the prototype, and the projects are regularly monitored jointly with an industry. In 18 months' time, we expect that the PhD student will start a company out of his or her PhD problem. So this is a PhD incubator specifically for deep technologies we launched, and we made it now a national level incubator. And anybody who has a deep technology idea, you don't need to have a PhD, but the idea needs to be based on a deep tech. And they can now start this, use this opportunity and become entrepreneurs. So this is, some of these have made a big difference to us in actually finding the right kind of problems. And finally, the strategic agencies. DRDO, ISRO, DAE, they have tons of problems. The one thing, 3 years ago, I went and met with the chairman DRDO, and I told him, there are lots of interesting problems DRDO does. We have, great wealth of knowledge on the campus. Can we do something together? And we actually started what is known as the Joint Advanced Technology Center at IIT Delhi, which is funded by DRDO. After 3 years now, recently when I was looking at it, IIT Delhi has received 265 crores of funding from DRDO. There are 80 faculty members at IIT Delhi and about 100 PhD students at IIT Delhi who are working on the DRDO problems. So that's very great, because these are the people now who will eventually contribute to the defense requirements of the country, and it's a win-win for DRDO as well as for IIT Delhi. And we have regular meetings where the chairman DRDO monitors that, and this is working wonderfully well now. That is a JATC kind of project. The same thing we did with ISRO. We created an ISRO cell. There are at least a dozen projects now funded by ISRO, where IIT faculty and students are working, and with similar things are happening with the ministries. And I think this is what we have done. And as a result, now the research is becoming visible to somebody. Otherwise, they were all starting from library and ending in library. But now, we are becoming more socially aware. We are working on the right set of problems, and good things are beginning to happen as a result of this. And I personally think our institutions. I see 5 T's. As we go along. In terms of the technology evolution, the IT India has done very well. IT, if you see our exports, IT exports in 2019 were $137 billion US dollars, and Saudi Arabia crude oil exports in 2019 were also $133 billion. So that's what I call the knowledge economy. You are exporting your brain power, not any fossil kind of a material. So in for IT, India is a world leader. All of us recognize that. And biotechnology, we know that India is the pharmacy of the world, and 50% of global vaccines, 40% of generic drugs, all of them are manufactured in India. I think India is world's pharmacy. In nanotechnology, the third T. In nanotechnology, India, as I told you, is ranked 3rd in the world when it comes to knowledge generation, but we are still not applying this knowledge to any problem. But that is also something which is slowly beginning to happen now. Now, for example, there are at least a dozen startups I can count, thanks to MITI, the Ministry of Electronics, DST, and all these agencies. Now there are a dozen deep technology startups in the nanotechnology space, and some of them are from IISc. Some of our leading scientists in nanotechnology also are now becoming entrepreneurs. I think that translation will happen, but in terms of knowledge, we are at the 3rd position. And then the 4th one is the cognitive technology. That is where the AI, ML kind of areas. And India is currently, many may not know, the AI, ML is currently restricted to the computer science departments in all our top institutions, because computer science departments still attract the best faculty into these institutions and all that. And there are very few people. The computer science departments are not very large. The largest computer science department is actually Bombay, and after that probably comes Delhi and all these other places. But they are top quality scientists, and they don't also take enough PhD students. They are all so narrowly focused and so quality conscious. They take only a handful of students every year, but they write the best papers. And these papers are in the world's top journals, and these papers are naturally very, very highly cited. So if you look at our publications, the citations per paper, India actually ranks 5th in the world today for AI, for artificial intelligence, ML kind of areas. But we don't write enough papers because all of that work is restricted to the computer science departments. But applications of AI are in every domain. From bio to atmospheric sciences, everywhere you need to apply the AI and ML areas. And if you leave it to computer scientists, I can tell you it is never going to happen in this country. How did, if you actually look at the history of IIT, history of Indian computer science here, how did computer science actually develop in India to this extent, which has in a way contributed to IT and all of that? It came out of EE. Until 40 years ago and earlier, all our computer science departments were part of EE. And because they were part of EE in a department, no group is ever allowed to grow beyond a certain point. Every group has to grow equally. If one group is not able to grow, other groups also will have a very stunted growth. But one good thing that happened in India, given our culture, is the computer science area came out of EE departments, so became a separate department, and then it was able to grow to whatever extent that it has happened now. And that is what I believe must happen with the AI and ML areas. If you leave AI and ML to computer scientists, they will write the world's most important papers, but it will all be in the core computer science areas, but they will never admit a PhD student with anything other than computer science background. They will be restricting themselves to developing the core, and somebody else will apply that core all over the world and sell us back all those technologies. So at IIT Delhi, we said nothing doing, despite whatever was the resistance that existed here. We brought the AI and ML out of computer science. We called it a school of AI. The sky, we called it, and we said it will recruit its own faculty, who need not necessarily be computer science background, but they will be people who will be application oriented in the AI and ML area. It will have endowment funds, it will do all of that, and we created a sky, and which is now gaining a lot of traction from our alumni and all that. We're actually expecting 100 crore donation now very soon for the School of AI as an endowment kind of a thing. And then this school now will work on applications, while the core areas will happen in the computer science department. Now we have at least 40 faculty members from all over the institute who are showing interest to become a joint faculty in School of AI. And that is how I think, another 10 years from now, the AI and ML areas in India will reach the same stage as CS, and that should trigger the revolution in the AI and ML application areas. So finally comes the quantum technologies. India has a very strong tradition of physics, chemistry, and maths, and quantum technology is all based on the strong traditions of science. And I think India should be able to do very well. We are a bit late entrants into this game, but just yesterday I saw a note from the Secretary DST that 8,000 crores is now getting approved as a grant for quantum area from the government, and he plans to launch some major initiatives for the quantum technologies. And I am confident when it happens, India will also be a leader in the quantum technology area, because these are all platform technologies. They will have applications in every aspect of our lives, and this is where the application of these areas and knowledge that we generate in these areas and then generating applications and wealth out of it is very critical for the country. And India has actually done very well. If you know, one of the things is ISRO, DAE, how come that these organizations have done very well in the country? Because they are all top down. You might have any number of laboratories for ISRO, 12, 13 laboratories. At the end of the day, what you do, needs to go into that satellite. If you are not able to fly your satellite and put it into that orbit, nothing matters. What research you are doing, how many papers you have written, all that doesn't really matter. But that is where India has done very well, where you have set these goals, where you have done a top-down kind of a thing. India, is known to achieve in the mission mode projects. India has always done very well. But in academic institutions, nobody is setting us agendas. Nobody is even engaging us to solve any problem. When did the government of India say that these are the problems, I want you to provide solutions? When they said that, we actually delivered. Even during the COVID time, academic institutions have actually come forward and come out with so many great technologies. That is because government expected academic institutions to deliver it. But until now, that was not the case. They were only take these funds and do what you want to. Don't even come back and complain to us. As long as you were doing it, they were happy with us. As a result, we were all over. If there are 700 faculty, you will work on 600 different areas. And if you focus on your narrow field of research, we will write papers, but you cannot expect anything more significant than that to come out. I think this top-down approach is the key for translation of knowledge to wealth. But I also very strongly feel that IITs must focus on unique solutions. While ISRO, DAE, all of them have done very well, but they're all mostly in the indigenization space. Or we are not the first ones to fly a satellite. We are not the first ones to develop a missile. Everything was being done somewhere else, and we have done it at a much lower cost, maybe with the same efficiency, and all that credit should go to any of these organizations. But in IITs, our role cannot be indigenization. I will never be happy if a faculty member says, I have this product in US, sells for $5,000. I'm able to do it in $500. It's okay, you have done that, but you're not going to get any brownie points, for that, in anything that you expect in the institute. Because I think our role in IITs needs to be using basic science, using the technology development. Can you develop unique solutions which can impact the whole world? I think that is what we need to set for ourselves as targets. And I come from the nanotechnology. In the next 10 minutes, I will just tell you, what I have been able to do. This is an approach I have always taken for myself as a researcher. And I spent all my time at IIT Bombay. So I give IIT Bombay all the credit for all of this work. I will skip some of it. As many of you know, nanotechnology has applications everywhere, and a lot of things can be done. And so I work in I started to apply nanotechnology to sensors. So because what is the advantage of nanotechnology? One of the major advantages is it has a very high surface area. You can achieve in this, in fact, even in our laboratories, we are able to achieve surface areas equivalent to that of a football field in a 1 centimeter by 1 centimeter kind of a die, by growing dense forest of nanowires and doing a lot of that kind of an engineering. So those facilities, thanks to Ministry of Electronics, thanks to all the leaders who are on this forum, Indian institutions have that now. Now all the 7 institutions in India have world-class nano electronics facilities where you can do a lot of this kind of research. So now one of the advantages therefore of sensors is, this high surface area that comes from these materials, you can make use of to improve sensitivity and all of that. For selectivity, you can also engineer some of these materials and all that. So I started focusing on that. I'll skip some of it anyway. But like I said, there are enough problems where you can apply it. So I started to, focus, but also the cost is important. You might develop a solution if you are doing something for the farmers, and if you are expecting that somebody will pay you 10,000 rupees to buy that, it's not going to happen very easily, because India is not a very rich country. Not even the world is also not a very rich country. I took this from the World Bank Atlas. All these light shades here are the wealth. Only the dark ones are the richer countries. 80% of humanity in the world lives on less than $10 a day. That's all the money 80% of world population actually make. I think here is where one can make a significant impact. Here is where one can make a significant contribution. So in India, of course, the situation is equally bad. So one of the things, I came back from the US, and then for the first 5 years, I did not have to do anything. Whatever were my PhD problems, whatever were my postdoc problems, I had samples from there, and I could write tons of papers. So that you have samples, you have what to do, you get good students, and I could write enough papers. There was no reason for me to think of anything else. But in 2004, 2005 timeframe, I asked myself, if I have to work for these companies, the great semiconductor companies, why do I need to even come back to India? I could have as well done that better, even earned more money by continuing in the US. If I have come back to India, I think I should also do something which is of relevance to the society, relevance to the people, and so once, I started feeling a little bit restless on that. Once I started to look at it as one of the research problems, some of us who were very young at that time, we said, some of us, the like-minded people, Professor Soumya Mukherjee in the Department of Biosciences, and he has been my collaborator for a very long time, and so are, many other people in electrical and other places. So we said, can we start to look at the local problems, the social problems, but we also told ourselves that whatever we do must be unique. It should not be a indigenization of something available elsewhere. So one of the first problems we picked up was a cardiac diagnostic system. We said, by detecting some of these markers in the blood, can you predict diagnose the heart problem, the heart condition? So we started to develop platforms for it. Since I don't have much time, I will not talk. All these are published papers. If you go to my website, you will find lots of these papers. But one difference we also did was, we said we did a top-down design. Now, if I want to develop that cardiac chip, which should cost 100 rupees for a diagnosis, to know whether the chest pain that one is having is because of a heart-related ailment or anything else, in 100 rupees for you to be able to do that, what should be the complete, what are all the components that you need to develop? You take the blood sample, you filter the blood, you have microfluidic channels, and you have the biosensors, and this entire thing needs to be disposable because you are dealing with the human blood. And then you have a small tabletop system, and which will do the electronics and shows the display. Exactly like the sugar testing, the glucose testing that we do, the disposable cartridges, and then a tabletop box. And then we went to each department to find out who can do what. And for example, this blood plasma separation, we approached Amit Agarwal in IIT Bombay in the mechanical department. Amit was not doing anything with blood or anything of that nature. He was basically a good microfluidic guy. We told him, we will get funding. Will you be able to help us in getting this blood plasma separation on the chip kind of a thing? And he took it as a challenge. He worked with us, and he finally, the problem became so interesting to him. Even after 15 years now, he is still continuing on that problem. And recently he got a Bhatnagar Prize for exactly the same work that he got initiated, because of this cardiac diagnostic work that we started at IIT Bombay. Bombay. And similarly, there are people in bio department, Professor Shomya Mukherjee, and in chemistry, Professor Contractor, in physics, Professor Kundu, in mechanical, Professor Prasanna Gandhi and others, and including Professor Amit Agarwal. So many people came forward, and then each one took up one of the blocks. And we used to have these nice meetings with 7 different departments working with each other, and there's PhD students interacting with each other and developing, completely a final solution. And then the tabletop box in in electrical engineering, Professor Mariam, who contributed, Professor Dinesh Sharma, who contributed. So we had a nice group of people, interdisciplinary, but the final goal was to develop all of these. And Professor Rakesh Lal, who was at IIT Bombay, he was initially, leading all of these efforts and all that. And so many more people came forward. In my group, I started working on a cantilever-based technology, and we wrote lots of good papers, filed many patents, developed the entire electronics. We went to our IDC, and then we took their help to build the first prototype, and we were able to finally put together a system where with a drop of blood, you can actually detect the cardiac markers. That is when we incubated a company, NanoSniff Technologies, and transferred the technology to them. And I will come back and tell you a little bit more on this. But then, in IIT Bombay, around that time, Professor Dinesh Sharma and his group, they started working with Tata Group, TCS, and develop a complete cardiac ECG monitoring system. And then we built a good platform. And once we built a platform using this cantilevers, and one of the problems we wanted to take up was the explosive detection. Dr. Baldev Raj, who passed away a few years ago, he heard some of my presentations, and he said, you have a nice platform for detecting these markers, and can you use the same cantilever platform for detecting explosives? And then he gave us this challenging problem. The principal scientific advisor's office, Dr. Chidambaram, funded this, and then we again went back to our chemistry departments, started to look at what can be the coatings here which can selectively bind to these explosives, and we developed an electronic nose platform, built a complete system here, including like I said, all this work is published, so and also filed as patents and everything. And we developed very high kind of a very unique pattern recognition kind of systems for the electronic nose platform. And this was what we did, and then we were able to deliver a kind of a technology. And so while developing this technology, so many other aspects happened. And we also started working on a physics-based approach to explosive detection. And so this physics-based approach for explosive detection actually worked much better than anything else that we worked. And that we transferred to the company NanoSniff again. And NanoSniff was able to take this technology and then and was able to do the thing. And then they finally were able to launch this as a product. And so, for example, this Nano Sniffer is a product that is launched by Government of India. In fact, we have a few weeks ago, Honorable Minister of Education, Dr. Pokhriyal, he launched this Nano Sniffer product, and it's a handheld device, and it is based on a micro heater principle, which is very unique in the world. Now we hold the patent for this technology in the US, we hold the patent for this technology in the Europe, and now this is a product, and many airports are already buying this. And as I speak now, there are at least 3 airports, including some international companies which are now in the process of buying this technology, buying this product here. And this is a disruptive technology. It costs 1/5 of what anyone else is using in the world, because our technology is unique, and the maintenance costs are also 1/5. And this is now going to make, I'm confident, every airport in the world should actually see this technology. But it took us 10 years. And the company NanoSniff, actually, while the proof of concept and all that was shown in IIT, some of the initial papers and patents were filed from IIT, the entire credit goes to the company NanoSniff, which was able to launch this product, and then which is now commercially available. You can actually buy it on the GEM, the government e-market portal. And then we started working on making that explosive detector technology a little bit IoT based and electron in the sensor network sort of a thing. And then our goal was to put it in buses and trains. But one of the problems we faced was, if you want to network such explosive detectors in the buses and trains, how do you power them? So that they are very discreet and you can put them under the seats and in existing buses and everywhere. So we started worrying about the powering these sensors. And we said in buses and trains, there are lots of vibrations. So can we generate power from the vibrations, the mechanical vibrations in the buses, integrate that into this node? Because we have the explosive technology, the detection technology, the powering it, if you can do from the vibrations, then you can discreetly place them wherever you want to, and each one of them is like a sniffer dog. And then we developed all the materials around it. Then we started working on the piezoelectric technology, and we did a lot of work again there, where one of the very recent papers we wrote, these are all great journals. ACS Energy Letters is like impact factor 12, 13, but why did we start this activity? I was not interested in piezoelectricity. I was never was working in those areas. But my reason was, when you want to develop these sensor networks, they need to be self-powered. And from that point of view, we started this activity, and that itself led to a lot of patents and publications and all of that. So therefore, one led to other. We started with that cardiac thing, developed a platform that we used for explosive detection, and the sub-components of it are what gave rise to lots of good papers. And now that we said the same platform can be used for agricultural sensors. Last 3 years after I moved to IIT Delhi, between IIT Delhi and IIT Bombay, we started a collaborative activity, and we started to do, because government of India has given these soil health cards to farmers, and farmers are supposed to fill up all of these kind of micro and macronutrient values. And where are the sensors? They need to go to these agricultural labs, but there are lots of challenges. We said, can we develop all these sensors which can fit into a suitcase, a small briefcase, and a village and level person, an entrepreneur, a 10th standard person, can cover a few villages with that briefcase and help farmers fill up all of these parameters there. So that was our whole idea. Then we started to work again on the prototype mode, because all of them require deep technology developments. But finally, the goal must be prototypes, where you have any number of PhD students working, but you stitch all of it together to develop these prototypes. So now, after it's about 4 years of research, so now we have these prototypes. In fact, they are already now there in multiple forms. And in IIT Bombay, we have started a company, Soil Sense Technologies, the proximal soil sense technologies, me and my colleague, Professor Mariam Shojai. So we did a lot of field trials with various farmers, and all these technologies are again available on the GEM portal for the farmers. We can do micro and macronutrients now. NPK we can detect with a very low concentration, complete weather stations we have now indigenously developed. So this is the way we started working. So all of them leading to prototypes, and these prototypes going to the market through startups. And NanoSniff is an established company now. Now they are in the IIT Bombay Tech Park. Explosive detector and our entire cantilever platform, they have been able to commercialize. And explosive detector, they have launched it now, and they are making waves everywhere with that. And the cardiac thing is what now they plan to do next. And then all of these are now, like I said, commercially available. The second company, Soil Sense, is also doing very well. They have been able to generate funding from various corporates, and they are now self-supporting. And so some lessons I learned: the top-down product-oriented approach is the key. On the platform, you can write lots of good papers. One question that people ask is, if I work on these products, will I be able to publish papers? Can I get my promotions? I think, of course, for an early entry-level assistant professor, I don't advise you to do this. At the assistant professor level, you should write papers. I think you should write good papers, establish yourself as a good researcher, get whatever awards you can get, in the first 10 years of your career. Then you need to change tracks. And that is when you need to now make your research, consciously oriented towards society. And you can do, a lot of good things, because you're not under that pressure to, become anything subsequently. Even if some things fail, it will not matter much after that. And then you also need to protect your IP as early as possible. And this is very important. If I have 50 patents now, all of it have come out of this process itself. And many people also, I see many young people starting companies too early. You have something new, I want to start a company. I think, I tell them, don't do that. That's a big mistake you do. I did that mistake with my first company. It is better to mature this technology in the academic environment. And given the lack of ecosystem for VC funding for these deep tech startups. So therefore, whereas in academia now there are multiple government of India schemes, and there are also our incubators are also now pretty active in encouraging startups. So this is what we need to do, and use the government sources of funding. Both my companies, benefited from the BIRAC grants from the DBT, and without the BIRAC grant, they would have actually been lost by now. And thanks to the DBT for all of that funding. And another thing is the value of equity. Many people I keep seeing, many of their director I see, people fighting for who should own more of what equity and all that. I always tell them, work for the value of equity rather than, how much is your equity. And I think this is something where at least I can advise many people on how to go about it. Involve students in the enterprise. One mistake again I see is faculty members fighting, it's my IP, why should I involve this student? The student is expecting to become co-owner in the patent. All that is nonsense. I think our job is to build careers, and as faculty members we must encourage students. They are our future. So students must be part of any enterprise. Any startup here by faculty where I don't see their PhD students, I become very suspicious of them. And I think this is very important for all of us in academic institutions to do, and look for areas where there is a great domestic market demand. Because in IITs now, we have all the expertise, we have the facilities. I think if you can work on the right set of problems, a lot of great things can happen. And this, when I talk about patents, this is again nanotechnology. Since I'm talking, look at this data. So now number of papers published, India is at the 3rd position. This is 2019 data, very recent. India is at the 3rd position. Our global rank is 3rd. Look at the patents now. India has filed 54 patents now for 15,000 publications. Look at US, which should be our role model. For 23,000 papers, they have written 4,666 patents, which is roughly 1 patent for every 5 papers, whereas India is filing 1 patent for every 280 papers. I think we are just not protecting our IP enough. If we ever want to start companies, if you don't own the IP, nobody will even touch you with a barge pole when it comes to funding this company. So we need to protect IP. India, has to get into that mode of protecting IP before writing papers. As people say, the mantra always is, patent, publish, and flourish. I think that is what we need to do. And filing patents is important if you have a any idea of commercialization in the future. And because if you are looking for somebody to take your patent, I think it's not again going to happen all that easily. But if you need to file patents so that some of that, using those patents, you can eventually start a company. So I think we need to do that more. The percentage share of patents, look at the India's share here. I think as a country, this is just 2019 data, and this is completely unacceptable for any of us in our academic institutions. And at IIT Delhi, we did that. In 2016, when I joined, IIT Delhi was filing some 20-25 patents. In 2020, despite the pandemic COVID, we filed something like 160 patents now. I think this is possible. All that you need to do is put in place proper processes, and out of these IP, out of these patents are now coming the startups. And I think that is the ecosystem that we need to build. And the first link in that chain is actually the filing of IP and protection of IP. So we need to be doing more and more. So this is one story, and India is opportunities. I think we have enough problems. Therefore, each problem is an opportunity for us in academic institutions. These multinationals are basically scratching the surface. They're all maybe 100 million of India's 1.3 billion people is what they are touching. I think our academic institutions can innovate in areas where there is that great domestic demand. And so that is important. At least in IITs, I believe, some of us who are, well off, I think we should be doing this. And this local R&D for product development is essential. Expecting that, something developed in Stanford, you can sell for 10 rupees in India, might happen, but it's not going to happen on a regular basis. I think, we understand our people's problems better. We know their challenges, and we should be able to develop this much more efficiently and effectively than anybody in the world. And it's possible to do high quality research in institutions. And thanks to the efforts of so many people on this panel, I think Indian institutions are now well endowed with facilities and all of that. We can do that, and even Government of India is supporting in many ways these startups. So therefore, I think to me, creativity in our higher education sector is as important as literacy at the grassroots level. And so this is what Professor Kamath once told me. the idea factories. Our institutions need to become idea factories where you bring unlike minds together, people with different cultural backgrounds. This I have taken it very seriously and to my heart. At IIT Delhi, for example, we started 2 new joint PhD programs with top universities abroad, and these programs are now attracting top talent in the country to the PhD programs. And now we have launched 500 PhD fellowships for international PhD students. At IIT Delhi website, anybody from any part of the world can apply for this international PhD fellowship program. And we now give full scholarships to international students and international campus. In fact, I submitted a proposal to ministry saying that allow IIT Delhi to start a foreign campus. We have negotiated with that foreign government. The foreign government is willing to fund that campus. And all that permission I am seeking is we will not use public funds. Allow us to start this campus so that we can recruit faculty there. We can maintain the same quality of IIT students, and we can offer them not BTech programs, because BTech means JEE Advanced, but we can offer them a BS program there. The admission criteria can be tweaked to the international kind of models to offer a BS program there. Make those students come to IIT Delhi campus for 1 year in their 4-year program, and all of them will become international students. They will pay the fee in IIT Delhi. It will add to your revenues. It will add to international students, and the foreign government is willing to fund. But it hasn't happened still. So I think, to me, that is what that needs to happen. Our good Indian institutions need to go out and set up campuses. And in this country, we have sent our private institutions to go and open campuses all over, but we have not allowed our top institutions to open campuses anywhere. And again, the problem is the public funds. Can we use public funds to open campuses there? Maybe not. But then I think at the government to government level, there can be negotiations, and government needs to facilitate this. This is very close to my heart, and this is something that needs to happen. IIT Delhi, IIT Bombay must have good international campuses offering BS programs in various parts of the world, and these students interacting with the main campus by spending time here, and recruitment of international faculty there. All of that needs to happen. To me, that's something which is very important. And this, unlike my disciplinary training at IIT Delhi, I said, we have been telling people to collaborate with each other. What I did at IIT Delhi was, we started a program called FIRE, the FIRP, the Faculty Innovation and Research Driven Entrepreneurship. I told our faculty, if anybody from any department collaborates with anyone else in outside the department, and you write a coherent proposal, which can be reviewed by some people and acceptable, you get 10 lakhs for 2 years. Each faculty member gets 5 lakhs each, and for 2 years. So we spend about 20 lakhs on that interdisciplinary between 2 department faculty collaborating with each other for the first time. So now, once we said that there is some funding available, we received over 100 proposals, and we funded half of them. But the condition was that after 2 years, you have to go out and get an external grant. If after 2 years, if you're not able to go and get a extramural grant from any other agency, then your project will not be considered successful. So we put that as a condition. We funded about 4 years ago, we so far spent about 11 crores of rupees under that FIRP program. Now, recently, when we were reviewing the money that has come out of it, we have received 160 crores of funding by these faculty who have, for the first time, interacted with people outside their comfort zone and went ahead and wrote those proposals and got to the institute about 160 crores of funding. So 11 crores of investment and 160 crores of returns. I think that is what we need to do. Just preaching, I think we need to put money where our mouth is. Just telling people to do interdisciplinary research is not going to do that, not going to make any difference. And I think some of these funded schemes, we said, why only between IIT departments? We do the same thing with all of these other good institutions in India, in Delhi, because it's easy to collaborate. And this FIRP, we then converted that into multi-institutional FIRP. We did the same thing. I went and met with Dr. Guleria. I said, I will fund my faculty, you fund your faculty. Exactly the same model. After 2 years, they will go out and get funding. We started at least 50 projects between IIT Delhi and AIIMS, The same thing we have done with all of these institutions now. Now IIT Delhi is not only connected between the different departments, the faculty, but we are also very well connected now with all the good institutions in Delhi. I think that is something, which is that funding is where it has made all the difference to us. The different attitudes, the industry kind of interactions, the research parks, industry days, some of these I have already talked about. And then the ecosystem for startups. So the delivery part of it, we again did this FIRE thing is what I am very happy about. We also started for student startup action plan. IIT Delhi has traditionally been very good with entrepreneurship. Why is that? Why is that IIT Delhi, tops #1 in the country today in terms of startups or even in terms of unicorn founders? More than half of unicorns from India have come out of IIT Delhi alumni. It is not that IIT Delhi is doing anything great or has done something very differently. It's just that the students who come to IIT Delhi are mostly from the business families. Everybody, you see as a unicorn founder has a surname Agarwal or a Mittal or a Bansal, or these are the guys who have got the IIT degree, went ahead and started the companies which have become unicorns eventually. And IIT Delhi still has a large section of every second student is an Agarwal or a Bansal or a Mittal kind of a thing. So once we realized that that character of the institute, we said student startup action plan. Now we are funding these students very early on. You just say that I have an idea, you take this 2-3 lakhs from the institute in return for an equity. And we are hoping that those Flipkarts or Snapdeals or Zomatos will come out of the campus. They will incubate those companies in the campus. If one of them becomes a unicorn later, that 5% equity that we hold or 4% equity that we hold, we don't need to go back to government for a few years for any funding. So we are trying to catch them very early on in those incubation model. And the same things, we have multiple schemes now at IIT Delhi in catching these students very early when they want to do startups. At IIT Delhi, we did a survey. Every second student at IIT Delhi wants to become an entrepreneur. And so no wonder this is what we realize now as one of our investment options. From the institute side, we have actually set aside 10 crores of rupees now through our FITT, which is a Foundation for Innovation and Technology Transfer. So 10 crores we have set aside. We want to become angel investors. IIT Delhi now wants to become an angel investors. We want to fund early stage companies with the hope that some of them will become the future unicorns and return us, all of that money. So this is again a new financial model we are looking for IIT Delhi. Hopefully this will happen. This is a busy slide. I don't expect you to go through that, but these are the sources of income comparison. Recently, I had an executive assistant, with him, I have actually put this data together. What is the financial model of institutions in the world? We looked at Europe, UK, multiple countries here, and private and public and all of that. Now, our India government model is most of the money, this particular, blue line is all government funding. The rest of it is all, small amounts which come from everywhere. We are primarily dependent on the government of India for our support right now. So we are saying, can we diversify our funding model? So we are saying, at IIT Delhi, we have set for ourselves 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. The tuitions 1/3, endowments 1/3, research innovation 1/3. If you look at the tuition component here, this is the tuition revenue from tuition fee. IIT, IISc gets 1% of its funding, 1% of its resources, the funding from the tuition, because education is free in our institutions. IIT Delhi gets 6% of its total annual budget from the tuition fee, and IIT Bombay gets 7% from the tuition fee. These institutions are completely free education today. I tell my faculty, I tell the alumni, you need to pay back at least the cost of your education. If your degree costed you, the cost of your degree you believe is $50,000, pay it back. If not while you are here as a student, pay it back during your lifetime. We have 50,000 alumni, 50,000 alumni paying back that $50,000, which is the money they owe to the institute as a tuition fee. IIT Delhi endowment will be $2.5 billion. And that is what we need to do. So faculty, now alumni are coming forward. As you know, IIT Delhi has launched a $1 billion endowment, and we are making a rapid progress on that. But that is again something that needs to happen. So I will skip this. But we have seen a big growth. I think some of these funded initiatives now in the last 5 years, IIT Delhi has definitely turbocharged. So we have created multiple centers of excellence, 3x increase in our sponsored research funding. We were doing about 80 to 100 crores of funding per year, sponsored research per year. Now we are touching 400 to 500 crores of sponsored research right now. So even startups we have increased by 4x, and 500 patents we filed in the last 5 years, and in the last 55 years, IIT Delhi filed 500 patents. So what we did in 5 years is what IIT Delhi did in previous 55 years. I think this is what that needs to happen. So we need to turn our institutions into that innovation model with newer financial schemes, and without compromising on any of the basic science that we are doing. Even during the COVID time, IIT Delhi has done very well. And this is my last slide. I think, to me, the 21st century IITs need to be multidisciplinary in their educational offerings. We started 10 new academic units at IIT Delhi, including 4 new departments, and all of them, are multidisciplinary in nature, highly engaged with the local communities, but globally networked. This is very important. Our feet on the ground, but we should be reaching the stars. I think having innovation and entrepreneurship as major drivers, a demonstrator of conversion of knowledge to wealth, and also leading to that a diversified financial structure and a student-centric and flexible curriculum with out-of-class learning, having a major chunk of curriculum dedicated to social sciences, ethics, leadership skills, and creativity. In IIT Delhi, the BTech programs, if you see, our curriculum is only 45% discipline-based. That if we're a BTech EE, only 45% of the courses will be from EE. Remaining 55% are offered by other departments, because we expect the BTech programs to be a little bit broad-based, focusing on multiple other kind of things as well. Having a diverse set of faculty with large chunk of faculty as joint faculty with industries, process of practice, and with their remuneration coming from more than one source, at least 10% is the target we have set for ourselves. And having hubs for industrial R&D, instead of a collaborative research model, we want these collaborative models rather than a transactional kind of a model. And this is what I stop here. And I, of course, dedicate this talk to all my teachers, colleagues, and students. And I think one thing we have exported during the Corona time is Namaste. I see many world leaders now saying Namaste. I think we need to export now a lot more technologies, not just the Namastes. Thank you very much. I'll stop here.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Ramgopal Rao. I think that was a marathon session. So we have Professor Balram now to share his views. And he's going to have a challenge because there are 43 questions I can see.
I'm sorry, Professor Balram. I think I'm not known to stick to time, but
yeah, we will go beyond our mandated time of 6:30. So Professor Balram, don't feel pressured. Feel free to go ahead with
First, I'd like to thank Professor Ramgopal Rao for that extraordinary presentation, and also telling us about all the initiatives that have been taken at IIT Delhi. I belong to a generation whose research began in the library and ended in the library. And it was only in later lives that we actually heard the word entrepreneurship. And the word startup is somewhat more recent. My experience with startups has largely been after my retirement. And I found it extraordinarily energetic, made me feel younger. I think Professor Ramgopal Rao began with the rankings. And the only thing that I'd like to say about the rankings is we shouldn't take them too seriously. They've been going on for a long time, from 2003 onwards, when they began with a Chinese ranking called the Shanghai Rankings. But the QS rankings and the Times Higher Education rankings are extraordinarily commercial rankings. And what these rankings have successfully done is they have seduced both the Indian media and the Indian leadership, political leadership, into believing that what they are doing is actually good for us. And I think Professor Ramgopal Rao sort of also came to the conclusion that we shouldn't take them very seriously. We were supposed to stop at 6:25 and maybe 6:30. We're past that time. And I find there are 48 questions now, but I read a few of them before. First thing I'd like to request Professor Ramgopal Rao and the organizers is there must be some way of sharing Professor Rao's slides with the audience, and I'm sure that could be arranged. Also, some people have said that as his talk went on, the question that they asked at the beginning of the talk had actually been answered. So I will now only ask read out a few of the questions. The first one is from the rankings, with which you started. And he said, who is surveyed for academic reputation and employer reputation?
In fact, THE, the Times Higher Education, they decide. Nobody gives them any list. But QS, we have been putting pressure on them, saying that, who you ask, we should have some say in that. Because it should also be geographically spread properly. Otherwise, it's not unfair to ask somebody in Japan, what do you think of the world's best institutions, kind of a thing. And so QS now takes 400 names from the institutions every year. But these 400 names are added to their 400,000 database, which is what they claim they have. I think that these numbers, no, I'm not just speaking off on top of my head, but not very probably. But we do give 400 names every year, and they add it to their 400,000 names, which they have collected over the years. But there is no guarantee that they will actually send you send this to those 400 people. So they are basically enriching their database by getting these inputs from all universities. But that is a black box. In fact, that is where we have the most, what do I call it, not such a bad experience with QS. We have been talking to them. THE is equally bad. And, I think we are saying include more people from India. But their problem is in India, nobody even responds. That is another issue, that nobody takes them seriously. I think there are challenges, but anyway, so you know it.
There is a question on the percentage of research funds coming from industry, but I think that question's actually been answered. There's a suggestion which says that we should have a portal where research scholars can share their research, published research. This seems to be a suggestion. There's a question here from Krishnamurti Ananthashivam, who says, how do we reinvent teaching in a digital world? And how do we reinvent the curriculum such that the engineers who pass out are more employable? And how do we make it more interdisciplinary?
I think Professor Balram, maybe you can answer these questions better than I do. I think.
No, I can't. I now plead that I've been retired for quite some time. So I really think that.
Yeah, I think, we have been able to move to the online things pretty efficiently. The examinations, we are struggling. We are not able to conduct these exams. And unfortunately, our education system is so much focused on examination, and that critical thing, since we are not able to do well in the online mode, now the whole thing, I can tell you during the examination time, I am scared to open my laptop, because every student who gets a letter, a lower grade than what one is expecting, there is an email. These days, everybody starts with Prime Minister of India and then ends with the director of the institute, and then who is responding to that. So I think, so this is the problem. But I think otherwise, online education, initially there were hiccups, but now we have picked up those skills. We are able to do very well. And we have also used this as an opportunity for launching more certificate courses. At IIT Delhi, IIT Delhi is a very conservative institute. Academically, very rigorous, but very conservative. We were not willing to give any certificates to anything which is online. And now during the pandemic, thanks to that exposure that faculty had, so now we are able to give or conduct 6-month courses online, and then give them certificates and charge them, some market level fee and all that. I am seeing now, that as a good opportunity to even generate some revenues for the institutions. But I think online education has picked up now quite well. But everybody wants to come back, because I think in IITs particularly, which are residential institutions, the peer learning is what everybody values. I think, what you learn from the teacher is only maybe 20% or 30% of your total learning. What you learn by doing or working in the lab, what you learn from your peers, I think that is missing. So I would think, 70% of the learning component is gone. So students are now desperate to come back to the campuses so that they can have that fun on the campus. So we are missing students. Students are missing the institute. But these are difficult times. We can't do anything. But I think the instruction part of it, the delivery part of it, people have become good at it now. I think that part probably we have managed decently.
Just to add to what Professor Rao said, there's no group of people who are more conservative than the teachers at our major institutions. So it's extremely difficult to reform teaching and curriculum. There's a question on how do we attract international students? Shouldn't we initiate credit transfer under the lateral entry scheme at UG and PG level?
We are doing it. In fact, we have been telling all our partner institutions, let us have student exchange programs. We send our students to your university for a semester. You send them to our university. For our students become foreign students for you. Your students become foreign students for us. Both of us, our rankings will go up. So it's as simple as an undergraduate student, looking at passing an examination kind of a model, which might happen, but I think we need to have more these partnerships. The joint PhD programs are taking off now. IIT Delhi, our joint PhD program with University of Queensland, with NCTU in Taiwan are very successful. These students wouldn't have come to IIT Delhi, wouldn't have even come to any institution in India. They all would have gone abroad, but we are able to now attract them to these programs. And so the quality of these students is very good. And so that's one silver line in the joint PhD programs. But to me, the joint the international campuses is one way things will change very drastically for IITs. Just imagine IIT Delhi having a campus there and admitting 1,000 students, from all over the world, and with high quality education and all that. And these students, coming and spending time in the main campus for a year. I think that is what we need to be doing, and our institutions need to go out. I think that international footprint is very important for people to change our perception. And also international faculty. We have been struggling. We have not been able to recruit enough faculty. 4 or 5 in a year is what we are able to recruit. But I think once we have international faculty, students from those countries will apply to them. And our faculty student ratio also will become better, because looking for only Indian origin Indians for holding these faculty positions is a very conservative way of looking at it. I think our students must be taught by the world's best. It should not matter where they come from. And so for that, the international faculty will be a very good thing to do. But then why would anybody come to these institutions from the top people in those countries? Why do they come to our institutions where they everything is divided by the exchange rates and all that? I think these are challenges, but the Government of India has also done Vajra program, the Department of Science and Technology, which is also becoming successful. I think if we can scale up those Vajra, Gyan kind of programs, maybe we will have more international faculty. I think we need to do more. We just need to launch them as major initiatives. Those initiatives are there, but they haven't scaled up as much as one would like them to be.
There's a question here which asks, what are your views on educational technology startup, the ed tech kind of, which are now doing private teaching?
Very good idea, very good question. In fact, at IIT Delhi, we started this online certificate program, and I was very keen that we shouldn't do it alone, because if IIT is doing, our professor will go with a chalk and then go to the blackboard and start teaching online. I think that is not going to be received very well at the other end. So we had a kind of a national level or international kind of a tender, and we shortlisted 5 educational technology companies, and these companies are now like the channel providers or the channel partners. Any faculty member at IIT Delhi who wants to offer a certificate program can pick up one of these 5 companies who are empaneled and offer a course jointly with them. Advantage of doing it is these companies provide all the technology backend, because some of them are very good. The Edusera or Upgrad, or some of them are now, the quality of their online programs is all very good, but they will be marketed as IIT Delhi programs. You never see any of them advertising as, with IIT Delhi offering any program. We were very conscious on the brand. These are all marketed as IIT Delhi programs, but the marketing is done by them. They provide all the technology, for offering these programs, and the teaching instruction is all done by the IIT faculty members. The examinations are also conducted by the IIT faculty members. They facilitate that. But so that is the mode in which we are operating now. It's working very well. In fact, we have almost a dozen programs now. In just the last 6 months, a dozen certificate programs, and with huge enrollments, and they're actually turning out to be very attractive for us right now. So they are good. I'm very positive about the educational technology companies, and we are partnering with them. We don't see that as a visible thing, because we are very clear about our brand value, and but they are working in the background with IIT Delhi in every online program that we offer. 5 of them.
There is a suggestion for your comment from Pamela Kumar, who says that an easy solution to bringing industry relevance to researchers in technology is to introduce the concept of standards-driven research, and that standards development organizations are usually working on a roadmap for technology with a 10 to 15-year horizon.
Good suggestion. You can look into that. I have not thought about it. I'll look into that.
The question, can we not have industry-oriented sponsored PhD programs as in Europe? This way we can have people who are already in the industry trying to solve a particular problem and get the support of IITs.
The problem is, we launch programs, but we don't advertise them well enough. There is actually a CII FICCI managed program called Prime Minister's Fellowship Scheme. Under that, an industry will support 50% of money. DST will give the remaining 50% of the scholarship, and the student will be labeled as Prime Minister's Fellow in our institutions. And there are 1,000 fellowships DST is willing to fund. So if any industry wants to collaborate with IITs or any institution in the country, all that you need to commit is, our stipends are very low anyway. You don't need to worry about it. So 50% of stipend is all what you need to commit, and the student will work with a faculty member in IIT, will be known as the Prime Minister's Fellow, and DST gives the money, including contingency and all that. These programs are available. I request you to just look at Prime Minister's Fellowship Scheme. CII and FICCI are the partners for that with the DST. We can fund 800 PhD fellows under that scheme to work with any institution of your choice. The industry person will be a co-supervisor for all those students. This program is there. We are not able to, unfortunately, scale it because not many industries are coming forward, despite CII and FICCI marketing that very aggressively.
I think the next question is addressed to you more as the director of a major institution in Delhi, but which is not affected by the question. He asks why regulatory bodies like AICTE and UGC set rules for NIT, IIIT, and private universities to hire only core background faculty. That is, you have to have a degree in engineering to teach in an engineering department, even if you have a PhD in engineering.
Yeah, I don't know.
The same problem is there for science graduates also, from one discipline to the other. So since you are encouraging interdisciplinarity among students, eventually the students may become unemployable by AICTE and UGC rules.
Something to be directed to them. I am in Delhi, but I am a South Indian, so I think I have remained.
I think that is why it has been addressed to you and probably should be widely debated.
Yeah, something they need to look at. Yes.
I think there's more than one question here, so I'll just paraphrase the question. Does IIT have a mechanism by which people who have been working in the industry can take time off and come and work in IIT for PhDs?
We are actually encouraging that now. And there is an external registration program. You need to spend 6 months, take some courses, and the remaining part of PhD can be done from your site. You don't even need to be on the campus. The sponsored programs are very highly encouraged by all IITs, and this external PhD registration is also very highly encouraged. IIT Delhi will have at least 1,000 graduates, 1,000 PhD students who are external registration mode. We have about 3,500 PhD students enrolled, of which at least 1,000 will be in the external registration category. So it's welcome actually.
I think many of the questions which have come on technology transfer and what IIT is doing, you have already actually answered with your later slides. They've come in at an earlier time in your talk. This, I think, maybe you should comment on. It says, do you have any thoughts on how to retain research talent in India in the nanosciences, given that the industry ecosystem is happening?
You know what, I think there is this misconception that IIT students are going abroad. I have spoken about it on every forum. IIT Delhi, we looked at I can show you last 5-year data. Less than 5% of IIT graduates have gone abroad. Less than 5%. So there were times when IIT graduates en bloc, used to end up in the US. There was that saying that the body reaches IIT and the soul would have reached the US kind of a thing. But those days have gone. In the last 5 years at the undergraduate level, less than 5% of IIT students have gone abroad. 95% of them have stayed back, and they are the ones who are building all these startups and all that. That's all happening because of them. At the PhD level, the postdocs still, the postdoc, many people doing it abroad is a very common thing. We also want our students to have international exposure. We don't want to be a frog in the well kind of a thing. In fact, if you ask me, I would like to see Government of India, sponsoring 1,000 PhD students, the top PhD students in the country every year, to do PhDs jointly with IITs, with universities abroad. I mean, 2 years in those universities, 2 years here, and finally let us give the joint degrees, everything funded by the Government of India. I think we need that exposure, and China has done that for a long period of time in large numbers and reaping the benefits of that. We have not done that. We have always looked at international travel as some tourism kind of a thing. I think the bureaucrats have developed such a negative opinion about academicians traveling abroad, which is coming in the way. I think these things need to change. I think we need to connect more with international universities, attend more conferences, send more of our students. I think we have to connect more with the world, and that's the only way our institutions will prosper and learn the best practices.
I'll read you the next question only because I'm an outsider, and I felt that the IIT students are excessively obsessed with their JEE ranks, and it's both the current director of IIT Delhi and the past director of IIT Bombay are present here. This question is, being faculty at IIT Bombay and director at IIT Delhi, despite having the largest number of unicorns produced by IIT Delhi, consistent with other parameters, why do top rankers prefer IIT Bombay?
Not really, it's not true, because some of our IIT Madras is losing out on that. IIT Bombay region students go to IIT Bombay, but IIT Madras region students don't go to Madras. I also don't know why. I mean, IIT Madras is a great institution. We all know that, but they come to Delhi or Bombay. So between IIT Bombay and Delhi, among the top 100 rankers, about 65 go to Bombay, about 45 come to Delhi. And but the once the institution which is Delhi region students mostly come to Delhi, Bombay region students go to Bombay, but the Madras region students usually prefer these two institutes. It is, we also, when I was in Bombay, among faculty, we used to ask ourselves, why do they come to Bombay? We also don't know why they come to Bombay. And internally we can, discuss that, but I think Madras is a great institute. I never understood why they come to other institutions if they are from that region.
We are running very late, and Sushila has turned on the video, which is probably a signal. And I'll therefore ask only one last question, which is here, which I think is very interesting. How are people's opinions and openness to try new technology of startups changing over time? Especially in the medical area, many people and even doctors are skeptical about using new or experimental technology.
It's a cultural problem, but things are changing. I think the new generation of doctors, we interact with many AIMS doctors, and the younger ones are very active, very aggressive also in terms of pursuing these areas. They are collaborating more and more with IIT faculty, very comfortable interacting with engineers. In fact, IIT Delhi and AIMS now, hopefully in the next 6 months, we will start offering a joint PhD program one certificate with 2 logos. It's easy for us to do, but very difficult for AIIMS to do that because their approval processes are even more complex than IIT approval processes. But I think it's happening now. I think I see a bright future for India. I think if this trend continues, if we are able to accelerate whatever we are able to do, I think the autonomy needs to happen, eventually will happen. Even in the new education policy, the government of India is talking about it. There is an entire chapter dedicated to autonomy of higher educational institutions. At some point, government needs to concede that, and I think that will happen. When it happens, and things will change faster. And I think I am confident, and I am somehow very optimistic that we are on the right growth path. I think we could have done better. I mean, there is no limit to how well one can do, but I think another 3 to 5 years, you will see a major transition in the way the academic institutions are working. And I see that change happening. Being head of this institution here, I can see how the new faculty react to certain things, and how they are working and their way of looking at things, and people getting irritated with every file, getting stuck for 1 or 2 days. I think that irritation, that restlessness, that is what will drive India towards prosperity.
We've had a session of almost 2 hours. There are a total of 66 questions here. We've taken only a small fraction. And I have to apologize to all the people who typed in questions. Hopefully, the organizers will find a way of passing along these questions.
No, I apologize to everybody because I think it's my fault that I got carried away.
No, I think, Professor Rao, I think they will call you back for another session to answer the questions. So thank you very much.
Thanks very much for this very engaging and interesting evening, Professor Ramgopal Rao and Professor Balram. This has been a very good eye-opener. It's, I think, set right a lot of misconceptions that we have all carried along in terms of perceptions and so on. Let me just quickly summarize a few takeaways. India has been pushed into a global world and a digital world, and surely the way for us to be able to stand on our feet and be AtmaNirbhar is to transform our higher education. That lies fundamentally at the heart of what needs to be done to be able to become AtmaNirbhar. So in today's talk, Professor Rao started with an analysis of the QS rankings, and they gave us some great pointers to what real measures of success we should stand by. And Professor Balram echoed the same sentiment as well. We saw that India is good at education and also research output, and is particularly doing very well in deep tech. And we looked at all those 5 Ts. Where we're lacking is innovation, and that is largely the translation of knowledge into solving real world problems in society and also the creation of wealth. Professor Rao redefined for us R&D as relevance and delivery. And one of the big issues that he highlighted, the reason why this gap exists, is that our higher education system is highly fragmented. He went on to describe a number of steps that have been taken by IIT Delhi, and starting with, and I thought that was the most important part of his discussion, was redefining research problems. And he told us about how immersion in rural areas and looking at societal problems using the humanities departments and social sciences departments, lots of industry collaborations, and also strategic agencies, and how all of these help to identify good, solid research problems that these institutes can take up. He talked about startups as a vehicle that can be used to bridge and take technology development into industry or into society. And of course, he gave us a lot of examples and really described what was done in each area. And I thought that is why this discussion has been so valuable for all of us, because you really made it real. You showed us how it can be done and has been done. We had a very interesting personal deep dive of his own personal journey with nanotechnology and the development of cantilever platform, and how through collaborative work across IITs and various other institutions resulted in taking this technology development from one particular application to many, many other real-life problems that could not have been imagined at the time that technology was developed. And this, again, for me, is so important as being the heart of the whole research process and how that can be brought about to create value. And of course, he gave us a number of actionable suggestions for the transformation of Indian higher education, such as international campuses and so on. But for me, the most important thing that came out of this talk today was Professor Rao's vision, which is using technology and basic sciences. How can we, leveraging our higher education institutes, develop solutions for the world? For me, keeping that vision in mind and going forward with taking all of those various suggestions and steps is what is going to make India really stand up and become AtmaNirbhar and a leader in the world. So thank you very much. This was really a very, very nice and informative and everything. I mean, it was a wonderful session. So thank you very much for that. I know that you've had to pull out a lot of time from other pressing engagements. So thank you for doing this and for staying with us. Professor Balram, thank you. This was, your being here meant a lot to us today, especially because you could bring so much of perspective in. And Professor Mishra, thank you for setting the stage for today. For our viewers, thank you for being here. As usual, all of our talks are up on the IITACB YouTube channel. This one will go up there as well. And please do join us for the next webinar. So thank you very much. Namaste.
Thank you very much. Lovely webinar. And we will share all the questions with Professor Ramgopal Rao on a one-on-one basis.
Yeah.
Sorry, all of you, I think I kept you 2 hours here instead of 1.5 hours.
They'll spend 2 hours.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Balram. Thank you, Ramgopal.